Hey friend, this is episode number 525 of the And So podcast with Taylor Bradford. Let's get to it. Boss Girl Creative presents And So with Taylor Bradford, business and life musings from a successful serial entrepreneur. Each week, you will hear Taylor spill the tea on all things business, life, relationships, health, and everything in between. But don't worry, each week also includes a business nugget that will help you stay on course. And now a throwback to 3-year-old Taylor who inspired all of this.
And so.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this very special episode. I am celebrating 10 years of podcasting with episode 525, and I have a special guest with me. I have Zach, the podcast man, who has been my editor for every single episode since launch. Hello, Zach. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this very special episode, because this is a special episode for you too. Like, this kind of kicked off where you came in your own business journey. And so I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
Taylor, first off, I'm probably going to have to put some celebration noises in here, maybe some air horns or something. So expect those. I might have to surprise you with those, because congratulations, 10 years. And how many weeks have you missed?
Zero.
I'm pumped to be here. And how many times have we talked in person before this?
Zero.
I mean, on video.
Yes.
So it's awesome to be here. I'm honored to be here on your 10-year anniversary episode.
I know. It's so wild to think, because I honestly have no recollection of what life has been like. Like, if you look back and think, okay, this is episode 525, 525 weeks, give or take, roughly. I think we launched with 3 in the can, technically. So I don't know that it's necessarily 525 weeks, but who cares? 525 weeks of sitting behind a microphone and then sending you the audio, and you also hearing the episode, to make the edits or what have you. And I can remember the very first few episodes. Also, still, like, our audience, my listeners, are not going to see the video portion of this, but I'm still recording in the same closet 10 years later. And it's been the same closet unless I was traveling. There were times that I have recorded underneath beds. I have recorded in hotel closets. I have recorded in hotel bathrooms. I have recorded in Airbnb closets. Like, when I've not been able to record like I should, I take my gear with me and just do the best I can. But it's been the same closet for 10 years. It's so crazy.
Hey, when it sounds good, it sounds good.
I'm telling you, like, it's just the crap that's in here is got really good sound dampening. It's very small. I am looking forward to, though, the new space, which is still a year out, but I am looking forward to that new space, to have it set up so that I'm really not recording in such a small room, because I do get a little claustrophobic in here, but that's in the future.
Yeah, maybe we can put like a screenshot or something. So you're like, no, I don't want to show people my closet. Come on, Zach.
I've actually shared it on Instagram, like Instagram stories in the past. And
Nice.
I do get people are like, I cannot believe you record in such a small space. But like, acoustically, it's a good space to record in.
Yeah, I mean, I've recorded full in the same size closet, full songs with guitar and everything, just like bumping into the clothes and everything. So it just sounds great in closets. The audio is fantastic.
It does. So in celebration of 10 years, I want to ask you some questions, because you've been on this journey with me for the entire 10. And I do think it is worth mentioning for a second time that this is legitimately our first real, like, sit down conversation in 10 years. Like, we've emailed, we have Voxered each other, but we haven't actually had a true sit-down conversation in 10 years. And I think that that is worth noting. The second thing that I think is worth noting is you, besides my husband, are probably the only two humans that I have consistently spoken to for every single week of 10 years.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, it's wild to think of that. And the consistency is inspiring because you have been sick on many of the recordings too, but you're like, you know what? That ain't going to stop me. And the thing about it is, it's not too bad, the idea of the nose being plugged and the sound of the audio, like, you know, we can work with that. But how can you concentrate when your brain is sick too? I'm like, geez, that is impressive, Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, when I am lacking content, and I am a talker, that the podcast world really supports that for people that enjoy talking, and I enjoy talking. I have no problem sitting down behind a microphone and just talking to myself. But I'm also thinking about the person listening, and that is helpful. Like when you endeavor into podcasting, you do have to know who that end listener is and either name them or just conjure up an image of them and sit down like you're having a conversation with your best friend over coffee or tea or drinks. And so that's never been a problem. Now, there have been weeks where I've kind of struggled with, I don't know what to talk about. And then I'll just go to Google or I'll go to Pinterest and I will just start looking at keywords to see what people have been asking or what content sits in the past. But I feel fortunate that for the most part, I have known what to talk about because I'm running so many different businesses that there's something that usually triggers a moment for me. And I'm like, oh, that's what I'm going to talk about this week. And I think that's what kind of sets me apart is that I am constantly teaching through what I am actually learning as an entrepreneur and how that has changed and evolved in the 10 years because I wasn't always doing the things that I'm doing now. And I don't know that I could have predicted that I would be doing the things that I'm doing now 10 years prior. So that leads me into my first question. What was life like before I emailed you? Because I found you on Fiverr and I reached out to you on Fiverr asking about podcast editing. And I believe your actual Fiverr listing was related to music editing. It wasn't related to podcast editing. So what was life like for you 10 years ago?
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, first, I just want to sprinkle a little tidbit on there that you do a great job of personalized content. You're not just regurgitating things that you're seeing on lists online and stuff like that. This is what you're living, and this is what you're teaching through what you're living. So it's not just this regurgitation. So I think that's why you have, you know, one of the top podcasts. So kudos on that. Now let's finally get to the question. Taylor and I knew that we just love talking. I think we're just probably going to do a weekly mastermind after this with each other.
Absolutely.
But so this is kind of interesting, the question, because I was trying to think too. I was thinking, did I start working with Taylor before or after I married my wife on June 24th, 2015? So we started working together, but I don't know if the podcast had launched before or after our wedding date.
It was before, because I found you in either late April of 2015, but I know I was emailing you already in May 2015 because I had already recorded the 3 episodes. So I don't remember exactly when I sent you the audio. It was through Dropbox. So, and I save everything. So it's probably still sitting in Dropbox, but so for sure, you had my episodes back to me before June 24th because I had no clue how long Apple was going to take. Because back then, it could take a month. It could take 3 months before they would allow you into their system. And so, yes, we were before you and your wife were married.
Yep. Well, don't worry. I won't play that clip for my wife. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that is it's nice to think back on that. My wife and I just moved to Encinitas, where we still live. We live in a different kind of neighborhood now, but we lived in a little casita that was rented off the side of my sister's home. She kind of gave us a hand to get started. I was just coming back from the Peace Corps, like half a year before that, and my wife had Yumi is her name. She got to the States and to Encinitas like just probably, weeks before, I think just right at the beginning of June, actually, 2015. So there was a lot going on, and we were just living in this tiny little granny flat, casita, whatever you want to call it, just barely enough room for the bed. My little studio was kind of like in a corner space, and the instruments were all hung all over the place, because that is true that editing was a side gig for me at the time as a musician. Still am a musician, but life was just so much different. And like Instagram was, I was kind of doing a little Instagram around that time. We didn't know what the heck TikTok was because it wasn't born yet. And things seemed much simpler. Now we have to be much more mindful and intentional to make our lives simple, I feel like, whereas it was a little more built in 10 years ago. Like simplicity, not as hard to attain 10 years ago, I feel like.
I would agree with that, because I think there's so much more noise too now that the influencer world is what it is now. Like that word did not exist 10 years ago. You were a blogger. That is what you were. And yeah, we had access to Twitter, and I feel like 2015, we definitely had access to business Facebook pages. But just 2 years prior to that, with Facebook specifically, you had to have a college alumni email address to gain access to Facebook. So like,
I remember.
It wasn't just for everybody. Like it started out for college students. And if you weren't in college, you couldn't have Facebook. That was their spin for MySpace. Everybody could have access to MySpace, but only college students could have access to Facebook. And boy, how have things changed?
Absolutely. So I'm happy where we're at now, but I also look back fondly at that time. And I had, I should know this for this episode. If Taylor is my absolute, I don't think you are my absolute first editing client, but you're sure as hell the longest running one. That's for sure. That's for sure. And the most consistent one too. That's for darn sure. So it's fun to think back. Other than the kind of difference between simplicity and noise, how about you reflecting back 10 years, Taylor?
So I don't know if I have actually verbally told you this story. You probably heard it in an episode, but back in this time frame in June of 2015 specifically, I was being attacked by a fellow podcaster's audience, and I was trying to figure out how best to combat that, and it really affected me for a very long time, even into the actual launch of the show. And I didn't really foresee or predict that I would be able to keep going because of how horrible that was for me. And I can remember sitting there in June thinking to myself, I had already named my show and bought my URL earlier, like all the way back to January of 2015. I found my first podcast and listened to my first podcast in October of 2014, which is kind of what spurred getting me to where I was going. I took B School in March of 2015 and really focused in on how I was going to launch the show and what that was going to look like. I didn't know about launching until I took Fearless Launching in May of 2015, which helped me better prepare myself for the launch. But I was dealing with so much negativity behind the scenes in June that I felt defeated before I ever got out of the gate. And so that I wish it would have gone better. I wish I didn't have all of that just turmoil and negativity rolling through me, being a very emotional being. And so I'm glad that that is 10 years in the past, but that really rocked my world because I was trying to figure out how to fix it. And it really wasn't something that I could fix or that I needed to be the one to fix it. Like the way that other podcasts reacted and didn't give me the ability to have an actual human conversation was really unfair. And I knew based on where their mindset was and the audio they were producing, because they took to the airwaves and made a very special episode about me. And I knew that they were not in a headspace to listen, to hear that was what ended up happening was unintentional. Like I hired another person off of Fiverr to build a podcast website for me because I actually thought back then, just being a blogger, that I didn't have the skills to build a podcast website. And so I hired somebody and he scraped their entire content, all of their code, and live published it against my URL. And I didn't realize it until I saw it live and I was like, holy crap, that's not going to work. And this is before I was ever published. I hadn't launched anything yet. And so I was like, what do I do? And I should have just crashed it. I'm really good at crashing websites. So I should have just crashed it. But I was like, okay, in my mind, I hadn't launched yet. Nobody knew I existed yet. So this is before I got attacked. So I was trying to fix it behind the scenes, but I didn't get it fixed fast enough. And then it just brought on a lot of really bad, like I had to go to Apple Podcast and have reviews taken down. Like they attacked me there. They attacked me on Google. They attacked me anywhere they could find to attack. They did. And they're groupies. Their show followers really came after me. I had a bunch of very scathing emails. And I just was thinking, oh my gosh, this is such a character attack. And they don't even know me. And that wasn't intentional, but nobody wanted to listen. And after even talking to several of my mentors, they were like, it's not going to do any good. It's going to give them more fodder. Like, you're just going to have to keep quiet, which totally sucks because I'm a fixer.
Yeah.
So that is what I was dealing with 10 years ago. It's so crazy.
So you were doing podcasting before it was cool. You got canceled before cancel culture was a term. I don't know if it was a term then, but it definitely wasn't known like that. Yeah. And the fact that it's not something that you did on purpose, I'm surprised. I mean, the business owners of the other one didn't notice that, like, oh, maybe she got help with it and they just hijacked our website. Like, or that other business used it as fuel to get more interaction, essentially.
Yeah. If you look at just how the world is today, sensationalism, anything related to controversy, I mean, it boosted their rankings for sure. It allowed them to have a megaphone and attack, and that kind of stuff sells, and which is unfortunate. And I wish that would not have happened because it held me back in my own podcast and my own endeavors for years because I was terrified of the crazy people. I was terrified of the trolls. Yeah,
I don't blame you. It's a scary thing, that group mentality that gets going. Like, it's like, you know, one moment you're at a peaceful, oh, this is very timely right now. One moment you're at a peaceful protest and the next moment there's like rocks flying at people. What the heck's going on? Right. It just gets escalated, and the keyboard warriors and everything. So, I did kind of know about that. I probably didn't like that happened to you. So I just forgot. I blocked it out of my mind. I was like, hey, nobody messing with my homie. But I got to say, the fact that you got up and you did it is a testament to your character. So you're like, I'm going to kick ass anyway. So
yeah,
kudos.
I wish it wouldn't have held me back, like from, I don't know what I would have done differently. So I always chalk things up to that had to have happen for a reason. But I couldn't predict. I couldn't go back and be like, hey, 10 years ago, Taylor, this is the path you're going to take, and don't let this thing hold you back. I don't know that I would have done anything differently. Like maybe I would have still held myself back, because I also still had blog friends that there was a website called GOMI, GOMI.com, and it stood for Get Off My Internets. And it was specifically to attack bloggers. And I had quite a few friends, even like in 2013, I had quite a few friends that had lengthy GOMI threads. And I was terrified of showing up on GOMI. Like I would be checking my stats monthly, weekly to see if I ever had a ping on that website. So I knew trolls existed. I just didn't know that I was going to find them in the podcast variety.
Yeah. They're hiding behind the cracks of all media.
Yes, they're everywhere. Everywhere there are trolls. So I'm curious, from 10 years into like just the forward momentum of you becoming a podcast editor, when did you decide to make it go at actually saying, this is going to be a business thing that I do? I'm already working with X amount of podcasters. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, there was a large global event that you may have partook in, as we all did. The pandemic. I'm going to put echo on that, just for drama effect. I'm probably not going to, but I'll do it myself. The pandemic. Ick. But there were silver linings to it, like any experience. And one of those silver linings was that it kind of jolted my wife and myself into pivoting mode. We were kind of at a point where me as a musician and also our pet sitting business here, it was chugging along, and we were kind of at like a ceiling where we were just like, run to this gig, run to that dog, run to that cat, run to this gig, and like by the end of the day, it's like, like panting like a dog. So that's kind of appropriate. And something had to change, and we were kind of in that, like, it was probably, as looking back, a sort of fear of like jumping into the next step kind of mindset. I didn't really know what the word mindset even meant back like before the pandemic, but oof, how much have I learned over the years? But the pandemic kind of, that happened. And guess what happened to pet sitting? Guess what happened to my musical gigs? Especially because most of them are at senior homes, and we couldn't visit the senior homes. So basically everything kind of went down to zero for a little while. And, I was thinking with my business mentor, my sister too, kind of thinking, what can we do on the internet? What can we do on the internet? And probably a few years before the pandemic, I bought the URL, thepodcastman.com. I don't know why. I thought maybe I'll make this a little side gig, make it a little more official. And the pandemic hit, and the podcast baby was born. It came out crying, and it started off kind of along the same vein as it had been going, mostly editing and production. But we added on, more of a full service type of agency to it. And so that's kind of where the podcast baby was born. What was it? May 2020. So see, that was like, was that 5 years ago? Wow.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
That's kind of crazy. So I'm curious, from that and having those conversations with your sister, because I have had multiple conversations with your sister. I'll never forget when I realized you were related to her. I was watching her Instagram stories on mute, and she had just tagged you randomly. And I'm like, wait, I know that guy. Like, that guy's my podcast editor. How does she know that guy? And so then I turned the sound on, and she's talking to like her stories, her camera, saying that you are her brother. And I'm like, shut the front doors. 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That
I was like,
wild.
what is that? A small world. So I'm curious, through the years, how has my podcast impacted you?
A lot. And I'm not just saying that because you're my client and I like you. I ever since I started editing your podcast, it was back when it was Boss Girl Creative.
Yes.
And which is a badass name too. I would take notes editing, like not editing notes, but notes on like, oh, this is what I need to do in my business. And I was like, I know I'm not the blue person necessarily, but the ideal avatar, that's how you know I pay attention to the episodes, the blue person.
The blue person.
The blue
yes.
person. So the ideal avatar, business avatar. But I share the notes with my wife too, because we have multiple businesses. And like you mentioned before, you pull from experience, but you also do just so we don't have to mark this one explicit, a crap ton of research. And I'm just always impressed by how much good juicy nuggets there are. Even like last week or the week before, just like how you treat people who you've given them a try of your business and it wasn't for you. Well, you're not going to charge them for the full year when they used it for like a few weeks or something and it didn't work for them. And that's happened to me too. And I've definitely had subscriptions where I've, had it for like 9 months and I used it for a month. And then I checked my statement. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's charging me monthly, that for the monthly aspect of it. But just every episode has great takeaways. Now they're the nuggets. So I'm still taking away the nuggets from each episode, but I think not only like the actionable items, but just inspiration of like you with multiple projects and businesses, and my wife and I in a similar boat. And especially now more than ever, you and your husband work together with the roofing and like a lot of the work that you guys do, and my wife and I too. So it's really cool to have that parallel going on as well. So not only the actionable items, but also just the inspiration, and also you being like, I slept 3 hours and my nose is closed. And I'm like, okay, if Taylor can do a freaking episode, I'm going to work today, even with this migraine. So gosh darn it, we're doing this.
I think what's interesting, like just from me being able to be behind a microphone every single week, it's literally been the only thing that I have been able to be consistent with, that I've made it a mission. I've told myself a long time ago, you're not going to miss it. You're going to keep going. You're going to always have something to talk about. You're going to pay attention in the week to how things lay out, how things play out. And you're going to sit down and you're going to grab your tea or your beverage and you're just going to share. And I have such a teacher heart that is why I feel I have been able to do that every single week. Like, I got really good at YouTube again. I was doing 2 episodes a week, and I'm doing so much. We are so busy with roofing that I have now allowed the YouTube to slip again. But I never promised myself like I have with this podcast. And I don't know what that says about me, but I feel like even if there's one listener, and that is probably something that I have really struggled with, is not knowing who listens. That is the one crappy part about podcasting, is I don't know who listens until somebody reaches out. But I can see that people are listening based on seeing the downloads or seeing the plays or whatever metric you want to stare at. So as long as one person is doing that, I'm going to keep showing up, because it is that important for me to be able to share my heart, but also to know that I'm in the trenches with you. I'm not this high and mighty. I really struggle when people like have me on a pedestal, because I want to hold your hand and walk forward with you, or I want to walk forward and reach back and pull you with me. That is truly what motivates me as a business owner and being a fellow business owner along other people. If I can figure it out, I want to give you the shortcut. I don't want you to waste money. I don't want you to, if I can give you the shortcut, that's what I want to do. I want to be the torchbearer that paves the way because I'm doing it anyway. I might as well show up behind a microphone and tell the story.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's a really big differentiator right now between real content, whatever they call UG or whatever it's called. So it's not AI, user generated content, because yours has always been, your podcast has always been first and foremost passion project.
Yep.
And then, if it's going to drive leads, if it's going to get, make connections and other side effects, good side effects, then that's great. But it's always been a passion project first. And that's really important. I was wondering if we could go the whole conversation without mentioning AI, but I think that's really what's going to set apart content that thrives and content that just kind of is like regurgitated, I don't want to say garbage, but regurgitated information. So being that it's such a passion for you, and like you mentioned, even if one person is listening and it changes their life, that's what it is all about. And I guarantee you it changes more than one person's life. It at least changes mine, and I'm your editor. So there you go. There's already one.
I've got the one. Can die happy. I think that truly, for AI, some of the things that I have been working with AI a lot, because I'm trying to like replace an assistant. Ultimately, that's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And because I'm in a very slow season for Sugar Creek. Like it's almost pandemic level slow, which is crazy. But roofing has been never busier. So, there is an ebb and flow, which is why it's very important to never put all of your eggs in one basket.
Yep.
The AI that I have been playing around with, there is a term that is being used. It's almost like a hallucination. And I think that is the term that people are using for AI, basically returning something that is so incredibly false, but it doesn't know it's false. And people are using it. People are just going all in, not fact checking, not like reading it through. Like everything that I put into AI, I'll get frustrated because it will hallucinate a lot. And I'll be like, wait, that's not what I asked you to do. And I will sometimes even say, do you remember when I asked blah, 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 blah? And it will say, oh, yes, I do. And then I'll proceed. But then sometimes it will still hallucinate and it won't remember. And it's like, okay, there are limits. There are for sure limits. But I think a lot of people are not, I don't know if it's right to say they're not anticipating that it has limits or they're doing it on purpose. Like, is it intentional or is it maliciously intentional? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like people are depending on it so much to produce the thing they need to produce. And it is great. It's a great time saver if you use it appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it hallucinates a lot. And I just feel bad for people depending on those things. Like, it's not the end all be all. You need to do the research and get outside of the AI. But there are people using it for their therapy. I think that's very weird.
Yeah. Oh, I could see general advice like get outside, drink water, sleep your hours. But like therapy is a very personal interaction. I do kind of think some content creators do that, especially with images. They'll be like, oh, it really hallucinated weird. This is going to get a lot of comments. Like, especially if it's close, you know, you get that, it's obviously AI. And then other people are like, I think it's real, bro. And, it just like, it garners so much interaction. So I absolutely think some people
fingers.
Yeah. They're getting better at that creepily enough. But yeah.
There was one hallucination. It does not know how to change an old school clock. So all the old school clocks say 10 a.m. Even when you say it needs to read 5:15, it's stuck at 10 a.m. Like, I don't know if you've seen people talk about that. That is a hallucination. It has not been able to, like the girl I follow, Sharon Says So, she did a quick study. She was like, no, you're wrong. It needs to say 5:15. Oh, you're so right. It is wrong. I'll fix it. And then it will put the image back up and it still says 10 a.m. And she wrote back, no, you aren't getting it. You are wrong. And she went back and forth, and it just could not get over whatever that was in its database. It could not change the clock at all, the old school clock. It was so wild to see.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's what time it was born.
Yes, it could be the whole Y2K crap. I mean, that's what I think about is, the clocks were going to stop at, whatever day because they weren't like created to go beyond 1999.
Yeah.
1999 into 2000, into the new millennial. So, okay, let's get into the next question. What do you see the next 3 to 5 years looking like for you? You've built this amazing editing business that's really full service. You and your wife just launched the Paper Song recently. I'd love to hear how that's going for you. What do you see happening for yourself, or where do you endeavor heading in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Well, definitely we're just kind of going off the tail of the last conversation point there. I mean, harnessing AI for the behind the scenes, help me organize stuff, boring, not creative side of things to save time to be able to focus on the zone of genius. It's a great keyword. We say it a lot, but it's true though, right? I mean, we can use AI to help with that kind of monotonous stuff. So then we can focus on, in my case with the podcast, man, I really want to continue focusing more on hand holding with my clients, coaching consulting hybrid, getting more into the strategy each time. Really that white glove, I think they call it, the fancy pants service.
Yes.
Which I think that's what podcasters are going to need, because there are more AI coming out where you can drag and drop the audio and it's still hallucinating in its own way. What I hate about the automated editing is that like the transitions and the breaths, and then I'll be editing like I use AI for some things, but with editing it's just like, okay, we're going to do a short meditation. Please hold your breath for 10 seconds. And then, the AI just chops out that space. Like, nope, no time to hold your breath. We must chop all spaces. So it just, for some things it's great, other things it's not. But I think really that hand holding and that offering more and more coaching to my clients as we go with the Podcast Man and more specialized services. So that's what I'm excited about with the Podcast Man. My gigs, I do 1 or 2 a week for fun, mostly at senior homes, sometimes at bars or restaurants. Custom songwriting, sometimes a jingle here, a song for Valentine's Day there. But what we really did with that is recently, thank you for mentioning it and noticing and paying attention, awesome friend Taylor, the Paper Song has recently launched. So that's kind of taking that personalized songwriting and putting it together with my wife's visual talents and creating a video. So it's what it is basically is a fully personalized song, fully personalized video. It's perfect, for Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, any Father's Day. Wait a sec, that already went fast, but next Father's Day, we have plenty of time to work on it. Yeah, just the perfect heartfelt gift. I think it's kind of our way to do a little bit of a friendly middle finger to AI, because we're like, hey, this is something from the heart. This isn't something you just pop in somewhere and it's a personalized gift. No, this is, what style do you want the song? We write the lyrics together with the client. They send over the photos, videos. So to put together the video. So we're super excited about that. How it's been going very slowly because the Podcast Man is going very fastly. I don't think that's a word, but kind of a similar idea of what you mentioned with Sugar Creek and the roofing. Like for, the roofing company is blasting off, continues to be, blasting off an upward trajectory. And the Podcast Man is the same way. So I'm like, balance that with the emotional things that happen. My wife and I, as you mentioned, we're also quite emotional beings, and it's awesome for the creative side of things because we feel and we notice and we pay attention to the world. And, but it can be tough. And we've learned that processing takes time too. So sometimes the processing happens during the day and the work happens at night. And then the paper song gets nudged aside. So I think we could do a full episode on balancing between different businesses and balancing the emotional side of entrepreneurship. But what am I forgetting about? Pet sitting is also chugging along, very boutique as well. So we're kind of picky on which clients we take, which is an amazing blessing to have, being picky.
Right.
Such a lovely blessing. So that's the quick kind of super long elevator ride pitch.
I love that because I feel like as business owners, it goes back to putting all your eggs in one basket. And I know we all learned this really, like some of us the hard way when COVID happened. That, I mean, for Sugar Creek, I shut down. I could not physically do anything because I had laws in place telling me I couldn't. And had my husband not gotten into roofing, so back then, roofing, construction, home building was all still allowed. Mm-hmm. And so it became something that we could do. Like we couldn't sell cars, that was not allowed, but we could get ourselves into roofing sales. Sugar Creek took a pause. And so having that ebb and flow, my RV and boat storage, people like my town specifically changed the code. And now people couldn't store boats and RVs in their driveways. So I had an influx of boats and RVs come into my storage facility, allowed me to expand what I had. I started out with 10. It allowed me get up to 25. And that is what held me moving forward during that time, is having other ways to make money. And you do have to, like, I've been on this like search for how do I best handle my time? How do I best
Amen.
Where is, and I don't think, and I've said this in past episodes, you are not going to find balance because every day is going to have a different curveball, and you're going to drop these two tomorrow, but you're going to pick up those 3 that were on the ground yesterday. And I think truly if we can frame our minds around where's the income and how do we support the income producing activities? What do we need to focus on in order to keep that income producing activity while still being able to find a little bit of time to nurture the other thing that we do want to be income producing. And that's what I've been exploring ever since Sugar Creek went slow. I let go another assistant, trying to figure out how to duplicate myself, trying to find a way with AI to better help me slot things in. And like right now, I'm testing out more time blocking. So I say, okay, from 8 to 10, this is me waking up, getting myself ready, doing whatever I need to do. And then from 10 to 1, I am content producing, whatever that means for whatever company I need to be producing content for. That's the hat, content producing. That way I'm not saying, oh, that's only Sugar Creek's work and Sugar Creek's only going to get 30 minutes today. That is me just saying, where can I put my brain? What content do I need to produce? And then I can work 1 to 3 on Smitty's. And that's me doing completion packets. That's ordering materials for jobs. That's whatever Smitty's needs me to do, writing checks for my subcontractors. And then from 3 to 5, I am back in the content hat again. And then 5 to 6, I need to be working out because I'm totally crapping that one. And then from 6 to 8, I'm in my garden. And then from 8 to 11, I'm back with the Smitty's hat again. So it's starting to work. I mean, last week kind of sucked because his grandmother took a turn for the worse. She ended up passing away over the weekend. So I wasn't able to like get into that routine the way I wanted to get into that routine. But I think for me and where I'm at right now, that routine is going to help me because I'm not like telling myself this is only Sugar Creek Day, or this is only Boss Girl Day, or this is only Smitty's Day, because then all the balls stay on the ground and I cannot hold them. But if I say, this is your content production time, then I can do whatever I need to be doing in that time. So that's what I'm trying out right now.
Yeah, that's great too. I think that makes sense because we've tried it both ways too, where it's like, okay, here's a podcast man day of content creation and everything else that needs to go on behind the scenes. But if instead time blocking certain types of activities, I don't know if you call them activities, but duties maybe, or certain types of work, then your brain is just staying along that same line of work, content creation, and all it's doing is changing maybe from one business to another, but you're still on that type of brain. And yeah, I've learned that. We've learned that too, is how much time it just takes your brain to switch from one type of task to another. And, but yeah, organization, we get it figured out 2 steps forward, 1 step back, something happens and it crumbles for a little while, or, it gets set back. But I think just shooting this, idea of black and white thinking, shooting it down and saying, you know what, it was pretty good. So that's progress, instead of being like, oh, I messed it up, but whatever, let's just go back to doing it the old way, progress over perfection.
Yeah. And knowing that you still move forward.
Yep.
Because that's the part that holds everybody up, is the actual action taking. Because you can set up, this happens to me all the time. I can set up the most perfect system, but if I don't actually execute it, I won't know whether it works or not. And so it's the actual act of, okay, well, I can pivot there, or I need to put my brain into this headspace for that thing. And now I know it's going to take me this much time to get in. Because I think that that's one of the biggest things. I do so much better at night when nobody is interrupting me. How, and maybe that's a creative brain. I don't really know, but leave me alone at 8:00 and I will knock things out of the park. Something that would take me normally 6 hours to do in a day. If you give me 2 hours at night, I can shove 6 hours of work into 2 hours. It's mind-boggling, but I don't have all the things pinging at me. The notifications on my phone, they basically go silent. The people calling me, the people showing up at my office that I'm not anticipating. So yeah, I think if we don't try to take action or execute, we are constantly fumbling. But when we do take action and we do execute, we are still moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, those we call them focus zones. It's just no interruption, just in the zone. It's so important. And Taylor, so we have an idea of some new awesome action and things that you're implementing. I probably could have said that more eloquently, but hey, you're the host, not me. But next 3 to 5 years, what's the vision over there in Taylor's, what's your husband's name again?
Chad.
Taylor and Chad's World. That sounds like a show.
It probably should. I kind of wish I had somebody that was a videographer just filming our life, because it would be very entertaining. We are a very entertaining couple. So honestly, I've come to a wall, specifically to Sugar Creek, and I don't know what signs really are. Is it a sign that I'm this slow? Is that a moment where I need to sunset the business? Or do I make myself even more boutique and really go way more into Smitty's and ramping up the sides of that business that I have been really bad at? And then saying yes to only who I want to work with Sugar Creek. So I'm there. I'm there with Sugar Creek. I find so much joy in having a garden. And I set out to be this flower farmer and having this garden that I still have no utilities for, but I'm making do. I have a 5,000 square foot garden. And I decided I wanted a farm stand, because I planted a lot of things, not knowing what they would do, first of all, not knowing what I'd be good at. and not knowing what the grounds would help me produce. And I'm in crazy production mode. Like I did not anticipate the sheer magnitude of what is coming out of this garden, the harvesting. And so I created a farm stand. It's still it's functioning, but I would like to roll it out, and so it still needs a roof. And I'd like it to be self-serve. Although I'm a talker, so I would like somebody to ring a doorbell. So I'm going to get one of those Ring doorbells that says, ring the doorbell to talk to Farmer Taylor. So if you wanted to have a conversation with me, you could. Not necessary. So I do still want it to be self-serve. But I've already started making money from the farm stand. Thank you to Facebook Marketplace. So I'm in a bunch of local Facebook groups to my town and my county, and I post there. But what has really helped me is Facebook Marketplace. Just saying I have homegrown, farm-grown produce available and putting at $5 because I sell a quart size or a pint size basket of jalapenos, tomatoes for $5. And I have already made 3 sales since starting last week.
Nice.
And I am just so overjoyed by people messaging me through Facebook Marketplace. Hey, do you have okra? Hey, do you have watermelons? Hey, do you have this? And all of that is currently growing, but we've had a pretty decent cool spring, which is very unlike Texas. We are usually already at the 100-degree mark, and we've hit that one time this year. And so my hot loving plants, which is okra, peppers, what else loves hot? The melons, they are behind. And it's just due to our cooler season. And we've had a lot more rain than we've ever had in years past. And so I had a slowdown on my squash and my zucchini because of so much rain. Like it's just drowning out the flowers that need to be pollinated. The pollinators are there. We have beehives. And my bees are working like champs. My beekeeper actually messaged me a few weeks ago and said, hey, I think I'm going to bring out some more hives. It's not going to cost you any more, but your bees are actively producing honey right now, and my other hives are not. And I need your colonies to help my other colonies out. And I was like, man, it's the amount of foraging I have available to them. Like I have a pond that they can easily access water. And bees go out 3 miles to forage, but they don't have to go out that far because I have a garden that is got a ton of things they can pollinate from just a variety of flowers that I have planted because I was curious as to A, what they look like, B, how to grow them, and would they do well. And then I have all of the vegetables that have to flower and get pollinated in order to fruit. And then all of the wildflowers that also exist on my property. So they have a large variety of things that they can go out and forage and bring it. And I think how I have set them up has allowed them to be such successful bees. But so long term, we'll keep doing Smitty's. I would love to be able to pick up some more revenue out of the farm stand. I would love to get into community supported agriculture and having a CSA subscription. I would like to kind of do a hybrid of a membership versus a true CSA where you buy a membership into my farm and then you get to spend the dollars how you want to. From me participating in CSAs in the past, I would get produce that I didn't want. And then I would have to find somebody to give it to because I didn't like that particular produce. And kind of the method I would like to employ is if you buy a $200 membership, you can spend it all on tomatoes if you want to. And so I'd like to kind of do a switch on how a CSA actually is functional per se. So yeah. And then beyond that, I mean, I'm kind of looking in the 5-year mark. How do I retire? And what does that look like?
Well, the folks can't see you, but you look pretty young still. So
I don't know that I will actually like ever like fully retire, but I don't want to be schlepping furniture in 5 years. So I think, looking back at the sunset of like, is this a sign that I need to retire out Sugar Creek? Am I ready to hang up that hat? I would really like to get more into TV commercial film with my inventory, but that takes some more networking. And Fort Worth and Texas have basically become a second LA, which is really nice. And we don't have the environmental like issues that California imposes on the film production side of things. And so we've got a lot of production happening even in my town, not my town per se, but I'm a suburb to Fort Worth. And the amount of film production and TV production that is going on in Fort Worth is surpassing Austin, which is crazy to think about. So there is definitely opportunity for me to kind of make more of that pivot into production world versus just events, because the events are really getting like I'm load in same day, load out same day. So I am schlepping furniture into a trucker trailer and then out of the trucker trailer and then back into the trucker trailer and then back into my warehouse. So the furniture gets moved 4 times every single time in a day, unless we're doing a multi-day event. So most of the time 4 moves in one day, and that just beats up your body. So I'd like to figure out how to do longer things where I'm loading in on one day and then 10 days later I'm going back for it. So it kind of like expands and gives my body a chance to heal, because I'm still the one with my team, my delivery team. I'm still the one lifting the furniture. So
yeah, maybe there's more like type of retreat type activities, at least a weekend long, to give you at least a couple days between, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. I love the community gardening idea and how many different ways you could expand that too. There's something about that too. I think that's another like kind of middle finger to like the idea of how so many things are just instant gratification. Like, oh, I'm going to throw a ramen in the microwave or something. Like, my wife and I we love going to the farmer's market, or we have actually found like people on Facebook Marketplace. We're like, we need farm fresh eggs. And then like, somebody will respond. There's something about that. Maybe it's from, maybe it's because I'm from a small town in Minnesota, and that community element of getting together and sharing that way, something that's so, pure in that way. And then something that's not as pure, but maybe could help is it's kind of a war zone. But Nextdoor app, I'm sure you would get a lot of interaction on there, even though there's a lot of crazy political people talking on there too. But hey, I find like eggs and veggies and all kinds of good stuff on there too. So
yeah,
I'm sure
I actually haven't thought. No, I didn't. So thank you for that tip. We do respond. My husband loves Nextdoor. He loves responding to people that need help, especially the older ladies that are like needing fence help, or, can somebody come and put a shingle back on my roof? And he likes helping people in that way. And I did not think about like making a post on Nextdoor specifically for my produce, only because we have very active Facebook community groups in my town, like very. I think some people just live there all day. And so
except when they're picking up produce.
right. Except when they're, yeah, exactly. But so yeah, I will look into that, because I do think somebody recently put on Instagram and they were like, I see a lot of these millennials are picking up homesteading kind of activities. We're going back to grandma hobbies. And as I have like really thought about that and what our culture has been doing, what our culture used to do, it does boil down to the boomer generation, and whether it's right or wrong, and whether we are like here and it would have always been this way, and we would be now more intentional and purposeful on slow living and like bringing things back to the way they used to be, or as close as we can. the boomer generation, and I have spoken to boomers about this, the boomer generation lived through unimaginable times, and a mass occurrence of grocery stores started popping up. Convenience became easy. Access became easy. And they just didn't want to do what their parents or their grandparents did. And so they chose not to, which then affected us as Gen X and millennials. It affected us learning those skills because they definitely were not taught in school. I grew one cucumber plant as a kindergarten, and my parents didn't grow a single vegetable growing up. But my grandparents had like gardens the size of Eden. Like that was how they fed themselves. It wasn't necessarily due to that they had to, especially as they got older, because they still had access to those same grocery stores that my parents did. But it's just how they did it. And they didn't really know any different. Whereas boomers had a taste of the convenience and had a taste of the access, and they knew they didn't have to. And so that was the choice that they made. But now the Gen X, especially going through COVID, the pandemic, Gen X and millennials are like, we missed out. We don't know how to produce our own food. We don't know how to preserve our own food. We don't know how to sew our own clothes. Not saying that I'm seeing a lot of that on Instagram, because I'm not, but I am seeing a lot of homesteading practices being learned by Gen X and millennials because none of us got that opportunity. And I think that is the gap. That is the gap that happened. Nobody chose the gap, I don't think. I think boomers grew up and were like, I don't want that. And so they made a different choice for the most part. Now, I think in some of the smaller towns, there was probably more boomers that continue those traditions. But once you got into any kind of metropolitan area or even, the smaller, bigger towns, that all went to the wayside because of convenience. And I had one boomer say to me, I wanted to spend time with my kids. I did not want to spend time in the garden. And I think I understand that mindset, but you had the opportunity to have your kids in the garden with you.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so was that a good way to think? It is the way they thought. And we can't change it now. We can only learn how to do those tasks for ourselves now and hope we pass it on to the next generations. And I really do hope that Gen X and millennials, I don't know about Gen Z. I don't really know where Gen Z's headspace is. They may eventually tackle some of this stuff, but I hope that Gen X and millennials can push this forward because we can control where our food is coming from. We do know what went into the ground to produce it. Like I am able to say I'm a low till and I am not using any pesticides. So you can buy from me knowing that I am doing this as organically as I possibly can. And I am companion planting and I am planting all kinds of things in the garden to bring in all the beneficials that can attack the bad guys. That way I don't have to use pesticides. And people, I also look at the boomer generation and they have a lot of health issues because they chose convenience.
Yeah.
And like I'm trying to reverse that. So
yeah, that's, the actions of one that inspire many. And I think there's a lot to that too, because we're also realizing with our mental health, like, wow, the quick, easy fix, whether it's like food or whatever it may be, is not always best for our mental health. But what is like doing something that you enjoy that's slow and almost like meditative, like gardening or songwriting or reading or walking in nature. And these are all things that are healthy for you. So it's like a double win because you're not eating this quick, like convenient food that usually isn't great. And you're also boosting, your emotional and mental health by practicing these other things that do help. So it's like win-win.
Yeah, it really is. And it leads me into the next question. Search bar confessions. because my search bar confessions are all over the place now that I am trying to teach myself these skills. So I'm really looking forward to this from week to week, especially when I bring on a guest, because I do have that goal for the podcast once I have a better setup for conversation that's not always just about, being in a closet. But I'm curious, Zach, what are your search bar confessions? Let's just give it a week. Over the last week, what have you turned to Google, or I'm guessing it's Google. It could be Bing, but I think most people use Google for search bar confessions. What have been your search bar confessions?
Let's see. I can literally look and then I can just remember some too. Oh, this is pretty boring. Spotify for podcasters. Maybe we won't look at that. That's mostly business stuff.
But even some of the business stuff, because I think
right.
What I see it as a gap, especially for women entrepreneurs. I can't speak from the men's side of things, but for women, we get to a point in having success in business, whatever that is defined as for you. But we find success in business and we now feel like we have to hold everything close. We can't spill the beans. We can't show weakness. We can't show that we're like just throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall. And so we do end up turning to Google, which is kind of where this search bar confessions comes from, is I don't have anyone I can ask. And I know that there's other women entrepreneurs out there who they have, I don't want to say outworked their friends, but maybe their friends aren't entrepreneurs, so they can't ask these questions to their friends, or maybe they don't have mentors, or they've surpassed their friend group, or they've surpassed their mentors, and now they need somebody else, but they don't want to pay 6 figures to be in a mastermind. So everybody's going to Google. So that's kind of where search bar confessions came from. Like I was trying to figure out, can I put links in TikTok stories? Because it's kind of, I don't have access to it and I'm supposed to have access to it, but I don't know if that got killed when TikTok, and the US was going to ban TikTok. Like, did some of their functionality go away? So like even business related search bar confessions are allowed here.
All right. Yeah, that's a great point. And I totally see what you're saying. Yeah. Personally, I have my mastermind and we have a Discord, and literally I posted a long ass question the other day and one of my buddies on there, he said, "Wow, Zach, long question." And then another one of my colleagues kind of stood up for me and she said, "Well, he just likes to make sure everybody understands the question." She just kind of got my back, but yeah, there are a lot of things like that. I totally see what you're saying. Even with the mastermind, sometimes I can be almost embarrassed to ask, because I'm like, oh geez, I'm the podcast man. I mean, come on. Like I should know all this stuff. Like, I think one that I've been meaning to search for is like, can you put video podcasts on Apple? And that's something the podcast man should know. I think technically you can, but nobody's doing it yet. Things like that, as far as business, definitely, my wife and I, sometimes, I like to share this stuff to destigmatize it too, but we go through tough things as far as, emotional health and stuff like that. So there's definitely been some of those searches, like how can I boost like emotional health and mental health, things like that. And that's where you're right. Dr. Google gives some pretty good suggestions, but a good therapist is, I'll be the first one to say that therapy is definitely a 3 thumbs up, because AI gave me an extra hand. 3 thumbs up in our book. But yeah, otherwise just kind of a lot of click up links in here. Spotify, Dubsado, or as they say, Dubsado. Some Captivate kind of taking my heart over Libsyn these days. Just to add some drama into the episode. Let's see what else. Oh, that's most of it. Yeah, I don't know. I probably should have had some more on the docket to make it a little more interesting, but that's kind of what I got going on with my search bar confessions. We can put in with the spotlight.
I would love that.
Yeah, let's do it.
I would love that. So one of the most recent ones that I did was how to tempura. Make sure I say that right. Tempura zucchini, because I have it growing out my ears. And I'm like, how else can I eat zucchini? And so I watched a YouTube video. I first went to Google, and then I watched a YouTube video, and I appreciate, from a cooking standpoint, of somebody actually going through the steps, because I cooked right alongside him after I watched it twice. And I was like, okay, I understand the process. Now I'm going to do it with him. And I posted a comment and I said, hey, I really appreciate your tutorial. I literally cooked alongside you and it turned out exactly how I watched you do it. And he responded to me today. He was like, thank you so much for watching my video. And yeah, that's one of my search bar confessions. I had no idea how to tempura anything. Like, I know how to fry things, but I didn't know. And literally, I'm going to teach you the key difference to tempura batter. It is soda water. That is what makes the volume
makes it fluffy.
Yes. And I was like, wow, this is like a chemistry experience a chemistry experiment in my cast iron skillet. I'm like, this is so wild. I would have never thought that putting soda water in with cornstarch and flour, and it bubbles up there, but then the bubbles really kind of subside as they work through the flour and the cornstarch. And then you coat your thing that you're tempuraing. Is that a word? Tempuraing?
It's a verb now.
Yeah. And then you put it in and it immediately like puffs out. And I'm like, well, that was the coolest science experiment I've done in a while.
You got to film that for us next time now. Live action.
Live action. Oh my gosh, that reminds me. Who used to say that? Turtle Man. Did you ever watch that show? Turtle Man?
Turtle Man?
Live
I'm too old for that.
No, you're not.
Anyway.
Turtle Man was was he on A&E? He was on A&E. Backwoods. He would go rescue snapping turtles out of people's ponds. And yeah, you need to Google that.
That's cool. We have a snake wrangler here. He's one of the coolest people to follow along on Nextdoor, because he saves them and he rehomes them, relocates them and everything. There's a big stigma behind snakes too. People get scared and sometimes they just kill them, which is sad.
Yep.
But Nextdoor, there we go. There, you got some homework from this one too.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Zach, I'm so grateful to have had you in my world for the last 10 years. Honestly, I knew when I started the podcast that editing was not going to be the thing that I learned. I decided early on that I'm good at learning things. I'm good at figuring things out and teaching myself things. But I was like, I'm not going to learn this. I'm going to find somebody that can do this for me. And I hope they can be long haulers. And the fact that you've been a long hauler has been like, I've not had to go out and interview any other podcast editors. And I can't tell you how many pitches I get every week. Not only for guests, but also for editing services. And I just hit the delete button because you have been loyal to me, that is one of my core traits as a human being, is loyalty. And you just make things so easy. I just sit down and record, and then I pop it over into your system. And yeah, so I truly do appreciate you. And I know I've shouted you out in past episodes, but 10 years, man, this is a milestone.
I love it. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to use that audio clip on my socials.
Sure. Absolutely.
No, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And, right back at you. It's been a pleasure and honor working with you. And also just want to, make it known. I mean, everybody who's listening knows, but just such a great contribution that you've made with your podcast over the years, 10 years now. And, just in the trenches, I love that you are there with the other entrepreneurs and business owners. And there's really something to be said about that and all the lives that you've changed through the podcast. So giving you a big virtual high five here. We'll keep it. There we go. There it was. We won't edit that out. So big kudos to you, Taylor.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate every listener, whether they are past or present, that has been a part of my show, that has been through all of the iterations when, like I have pivoted this year with another name change because I no longer felt purposely aligned with the last one, and giving an opportunity to myself to be able to really kind of pull back the curtain even more, which is, I feel like what I lacked or what I missed for the first 9 years, and where I really just kind of held it tight and didn't really, even though it was me showing up every week and I would add in some tidbits here and there, I really kept it focused on whatever that topic was. And I wouldn't go back and change it. It served me well, but I always felt that I was lacking something. And being able to have it in this format, the And So format of the show, and giving the business nugget, but giving you a greater look at what is going on in my world, I think better serves the person listening, because I become a little bit more relatable. And I think for the 9 years prior that is something that I couldn't figure out how to solve. And so now that I feel like I have done that, I'm getting more people interacting with me. It's opened the door for more conversations off air. And that's really what I was aiming for the last 10 years, to have a conversation with somebody who might be listening, because that is the one thing that I missed. I missed being able to have that kind of open loop communication. Podcasting is very closed loop communication. You don't know who's listening until they say so. And now having that pullback with the And So version of my show has really kind of opened up to having more conversations beyond the show, because people actually are hearing what's going on week to week. And I can tell you, I recently polled some of my OG listeners that haven't listened to the show since I changed the format. And I said, hey, I want you to go listen to this AI episode. It's me workshopping using AI to help me build something out. And I want you to tell me your takeaways. What am I missing? What did you find valuable from that? And every single one of them hadn't listened to the new format, and they immediately cued in on that. And then didn't really give me the feedback I was trying to get until I was like, hey, newsflash, I changed the format of my show, which is when I started time stamping the business nugget, because that's what they're looking for. So the title of my show, that is what they anticipated the whole episode being about. They were not like anticipating hearing me talk about all the things leading up to the business nugget. And I'm like, but I've really turned the show more into talk show style, which will lead into how I want the interviews to go in the future, and, having more segments. I'm literally thinking about the Taylor Show and having it have the segments, which is why it is set up the way it is right now. But having some of my OG listeners who haven't listened, they're like, well, it was a while until you got there, but then once you got there, and then they missed that I was workshopping myself. They thought I was workshopping for them. And so I got some interesting feedback for sure, but I was like, hey, wait, no, I workshop myself live. Like that's what I was doing. I wasn't workshopping you. I was workshopping me. So that's been fun. But again, thank you so much for being on this journey with me. And thank you to my listeners for being on this journey. 10 years is a long time to be doing something and not missing a week and not duplicating an episode. Even though I've probably talked about a topic, it's not been the same audio just regurgitated forward. It has been me sitting back down and talking about that topic again in a way from where I am now, like the hat I'm wearing now versus the hat I was wearing then. And I just so appreciate everyone. I so appreciate you as my editor and really showing up for me week to week, and the listeners hitting play from week to week. I really appreciate that. And it has been a passion. So as long as I'm continuing to serve one human being, and if that's you, Zach, awesome. I will continue to do it. I feel like I have never felt a sunset on the show. I have like tried to figure out like how can this move forward, what I need to do to pivot, how do I keep going? And I've shut those avenues down as I felt that I was coming to a wall, and made pivots, which is why I've changed the name of a couple of times. And so I love the freedom that podcasting affords me. I love that if I have no business nugget, that I can still show up behind the mic and talk about mindset, or I can talk about, what's going on in the garden. And I'm sure I can find a teaching moment
right.
for that. But it really has been something that has been a part of me consistently for all 10 years. And it's almost like something is attached to my hip and I can't let it go. So I don't plan on letting it go. And I just appreciate everyone. And I know this was a lengthy episode for people to listen to, but I hope you will listen through. And until next time, we will officially be in the 11th year of the podcast. And here's to at least the next 5, but I mean, heck, we can go 10. Great.
Let's do it. Love it.
Thanks, you guys. Until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your week.
And so, let's talk. Let's go.
And like my 3-year-old self said, that is all for this week. Friendly reminder to rate and review my show wherever you are listening. And last but not least, I'd love to hear from you. Leave me an audio message at bossgirlcreative.com/speak. I would love to hear your takeaways, ideas for upcoming episode topics, and your feedback. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of this one.